Today, Great.com talks with Chad Prograki, who is the founder and president of Living Lands and Waters. If you haven't heard of them, they are an organization on a mission dedicated to cleaning up America's rivers. If you're new here, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because today we learn the importance of removing rubbish from rivers. Hello, Chad, and welcome to our podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Glad to be on.
Chad, thanks for being here. And I really look forward to asking you a few questions about your organization and learning a bit more about the rivers in America. So,
For sure.
Chad, to start with, for me and anybody new here, what is Living Lands and Waters and what do you do?
As you said, it's an organization dedicated to cleaning up America's rivers. And when I say cleaning them up, I mean removing the thousands of barrels, thousands of tires, appliances, pulling out cars, trucks, tops of school buses, tractors, sunken boats, anything that shouldn't be in there that was man-made. That's what we focus on. And, small stuff, big stuff, it all adds up and it all makes a difference. So that's pretty much what it is. We do a lot of tree plantings and education. So yeah, we love it.
Wow, that sounds, oh my God, incredible. Some of the things that you just listed off there, I was like, what? School bus? I heard a school bus, I swear.
Yeah.
Wow,
Oh, yeah.
that's amazing. So Chad, why would you then say that what you do is so important?
Well, first of all, I don't think rivers, no matter where they are in the world, should be a place for trash. They should be protected and kept pristine. And when it comes down to it, all these cities and small towns that we work in and through, they all get their drinking water directly out of rivers. And, a lot of people recreate, a lot of people go fishing, sightseeing, what have you. And, there's a lot of harmful stuff in what we pick up. There's a lot of contaminants and, we're not talking like truckloads. We're talking like barge loads of stuff, like 11 million pounds and a lot of barrels with contaminants in them. And so for a multitude of reasons, it's important to get clean and then keep it clean. But, slowly but surely it's working. And so, yeah.
Wow. And again, it amazes me, like the amount of rubbish and stuff that gets dumped into these rivers. So then going on from this, what the question would be then, Chad, what do you guys do with the stuff that you pull out? Like, what's the process? What does it look like? Say, for instance, you go to a river, you pull a load of stuff out, like you say, a bus, and then what do you do with this stuff?
So just to be clear, just to back up one little quick thing, it's not like everybody's just dumping in the rivers. Sure, there are people who do that, but most people are not doing that or wouldn't even think of that. The stuff comes from all over, but floods, the rivers flood really bad in certain places, and that brings a lot of the stuff here. So I don't want it to seem like everybody's just dumping in our rivers, but in the past, people have done that, certainly, but I think things are getting better. As far as the question of what we do with it, that's a whole other process as well. So we have a series of barges, like 5 giant barges, and each one is dedicated. Like one is just 1,000. Right now, it probably has 3,000 or 4,000 tires stacked up on it. And then we have one that's just the scrap metal so all the appliances, the refrigerators and TV sets and all that is on one. And then then one is just like the plastics, like the bottles. But and then batteries, propane tanks, I mean, everything is sorted out and it's basically like a floating recycling center. We try to unload once a year, but sometimes could be up to 3 times a year because we fill up so quick. So, we also put on what's called Recycle Like a Rock Star. We bring in like DJs and smoke machines and laser beams and we sort everything out with large groups of people. So we set up all these tables and we can sort out about 60,000 pounds in about 2.5 hours, like of all the bottles and cans. So we're trying to do the right thing with it, and getting it out of the river is one thing, and then doing the right thing is another. But both not the easiest task, but at the end of the day, getting the job done.
Yeah, definitely. But it's all about getting that stuff out and then get it ready, prepared in order to then say recycle that stuff.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
so how much did you say, Chad, off the top of your head, uh, amount of waste, say in a weight terms,
Uh,
is being dumped into rivers on average on say a yearly basis?
I don't know how much is dumped in. I just know how much we've pulled out,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's about 11 million pounds. We exceeded 11 million pounds a couple months ago, so yeah, we're just we have another 11 million to go. So things take time, but yeah, we're just little by little.
Yeah, definitely. And wow, like just big numbers again there. So what would you say then, Chad, would be sort of the knock-on effect of people dumping into rivers, or like the long-term damage caused to these rivers, and even say the marine life, or yeah, the fish, etc., that live in these rivers? What are the long-term effects and damage of the
Well,
waste that are getting dumped in there?
I'm not a scientist, but as I said, we pulled out thousands of barrels, like 55-gallon barrels that have different contaminants in it, like pesticides and oil and all these different solvents and things that are not only harmful for us, but certainly fish, wildlife, and but also just the aesthetics. Like if some place is trashed, then more people are likely to say, oh, it's dirty, instead of saying that's a beautiful river and it needs to be protected. So I think the act of doing what we do is really important, and then giving the opportunity for lots of people to come out here and help. Like, that's one thing I haven't said is, I've worked side by side with about 118,000 people have come out from all different states throughout the U.S. and helped us work on doing this. So it certainly isn't like a one-man band. I live and work on a barge with about 10 people, and we get a lot of stuff done with a lot of help from a lot of people. So we'll love it.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. Like you got that large volume of volunteers, etc.
Mhm.
So say then, since its founding in 1997, what have been say some of your greatest challenges, and how did you overcome them?
Certainly figuring out what works and what doesn't from an operational standpoint. That's been tough, and just every day it has challenges, but I learned early on, if it was so easy, then somebody else would have cleaned it up a long time ago. So I just, you either go right through a problem, or around it, or under it, or over it, or whatever it takes just to keep going and moving forward and continuing progress.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So another question that I wanted to ask you, Chad, was
Yeah.
this whole COVID situation. Obviously, more people are at home now. Have you
Yeah.
noticed an increase at all in, say, waste being dumped into rivers due to more people being at home?
No, not at all. I mean, I can't say I've noticed an increase, more so a decrease over the years, and not only getting it clean, but keeping it clean. Like, it's just people are changing and seeing the rivers for what they are. But as far as COVID, it's affected how many volunteers we've been able to work with in groups and things like that. But we're in an open aired setting, and so there's been still some flexibility with that. But we just try to be safe, and we were able to do a lot on maintenance on the operation that normally just we were able to get a lot of stuff done that we maybe wouldn't have, if cosmetically, things like that on the dormitory that we live on, and the flooring. Anyway, it hasn't affected us that much as an organization. I feel like coming out of it, I know we're kind of going back into it, but we're stronger than when we went into it, and so that's kind of what we're. It's a challenge, but life's full of them.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear that it hasn't, say, affected you guys as much. So then, for you and the organisation, what would you say is needed most right now for you, and how are you, or so for the rivers? Sorry, what is needed most right now for the rivers, and how are you guys a part of the solution?
I think For the rivers, like silt, like dirt, sand, filling them in is a big thing. That's a major problem. It's a huge problem with no easy answers. And I say, big. It's the the Mississippi drainage basin is 1.2 million square miles. So, and silt comes from everywhere. That's a problem, and runoff's a big problem. There's a lot of problems, and garbage is just one of the many, and not necessarily top on the list, but just something that when I started out, just as a teenager, I thought I could make a difference, and think that with a lot of people and a lot of help we have, but yeah, there's certainly a lot of problems with rivers, but we as people, we mess things up, and I believe that we as people can fix them, and so that's how I think.
Yeah, no, definitely, and obviously working together in teams as well. It helps so
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
Um,
the barge
yeah,
that I'm sitting on right now, that the name of it is teamwork, and
oh,
because that's
nice.
really what it takes. So yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I believe in the acronym for team is together, everyone achieves more, because it's so true. The more people you can get together, the more you can make a positive impact. So I want to ask you another question, Chad, and it would be sort of maybe what was one of your, say, success stories, or even what was one thing that you pulled out of a river and you just like, wow, I will never forget that moment.
I honestly think there's just so many success stories. I mean, every group of people that I work with, I feel like is a success story. Every boatload is a success story. Every barge load, every pound, every tree. We've planted about, well, I think it's 1.7 million trees, something close to that. So every school kid through here, we've had 11,000 school kids that are floating classroom, and um, there's just a lot of success stories. Matter of fact, we have a wall of pictures that were kind of like a collage of pictures on the back wall, and it's hundreds of pictures, and every one of them is a success story, and so I don't have one defining, say, moment or thing, and there's just a lot of them that just, I guess, get us to where we are as an organization and where the rivers are today.
Yeah, of course. And I noticed you said there, Chad, about the planting the trees. So could you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about that? What you do there?
Yeah, so it was called Million Trees Program. It still is, but we've exceeded a million, so maybe we should change the name. But it started out basically the islands of the Mississippi River. I live on a lot of these islands, and we park our equipment on there. And people think that I see a lot more wildlife than I actually do. And the reason you don't see as much wildlife on the upper Mississippi River is because there just isn't a food source for them, because just not to get into a 20-minute version of this, but the steamboat era, when they used wood to fuel the boats, they cut them all down. And then they grew back after they switched to coal. Then the lock and dams were built, and flooded a lot of the timber, but only certain trees could survive well unless they were on these higher islands. So we got into it planting hardwood trees that create more food for wildlife on the higher islands. That it was very successful, and then we ended up starting our own nursery and giving the trees out because we couldn't be everywhere, and it just grew into giving out or planting 1.7 million trees. So that's how it started. Now it's much bigger and spread out, but anyway, we love doing that, and that's something that will be part of the legacy of cleaner rivers, and a better tomorrow, and all those kind of things that yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing, and that is such a great impact that what you guys are doing there with planting the trees. It's incredible. Like to just yeah, it's basically give back to the earth, like planting the
Yeah.
trees, and oh my god, it's amazing. So that's so nice about what you just said there. So one other question that I wanted to ask you about the rivers.
Yeah.
How many rivers would you say that you've helped clean in total?
I think we've worked on 24 rivers. Now, we certainly haven't cleaned up every river of the 24, but we've made some really good strides, and we're pretty strategic on where we go to make the biggest difference, or where it needs like people to get involved in momentum, or it's the dirtiest stretch or things like that. So, we worked pretty much in the eastern part of the United States because there's more water and more of a need for what we do, and it's pretty much our equipment base is set up for it. So yeah, I think it's like 23 or 24 rivers. Yeah.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So now moving on, Chad, I'd like to ask you a bit about the Bison Bridge project.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, that's a whole other podcast, but we'll certainly try. There's a lot to it. Yeah. So I guess just Bison Bridge, if I had to sum it up. So they're going to build a new giant bridge over the Mississippi River and replace an existing bridge that's still currently fine. They're just making it bigger because there's more traffic, essentially. And it's right by where I grew up, and it's a great vantage point. It's where the Mississippi runs east and west, so the sun sets right in the distance. There's a lock and dam there. It's a beautiful spot. And instead of blowing the bridge up, which would cost to demolish it and all that, about $30 million to taxpayers, I'm trying to save the bridge and do something one of a kind. It's never been done in the world, and make it a wildlife crossing in the westbound lane. Eastbound lane connect basically for pedestrians. And it's not associated. The interstate that it's part of is Interstate 80, which runs from New York City to San Francisco, 2,899.6 miles. So it's a major interstate here in the United States. You have about 42,000 cars traveling on it a day. And I think because of the uniqueness of the wildlife crossing for bison, pedestrian use in the Mississippi River, it would certainly be well attended. And I think people like yourself from all over the world, if they were to come to the United States, be driving at Interstate 80, would definitely stop. And yes, there is a small herd of bison that would be there crossing, and that is sort of something that is totally unique. But what the real attraction is the river itself, and how important that is to this country as economic and wildlife and all that. So, that's in a nutshell. You just have to go to bisonbridge.org. Again, that's bisonbridge.org, and check it out and watch the videos of what it can be. So listen, I'm not into wasting anybody's time, and I'm a busy guy. I don't waste my own time. And if this wasn't, it's not a crazy idea. This is like a plan, and it have a dedicated team of really professional people and engineering firms that are backing this, and the momentum is huge. But if anybody can just sign up for it, this isn't a fundraising thing. We're not asking for money. If you think it's good and you live somewhere in Europe or anywhere you live, just sign up if you think it's cool. And then when it's done down the road, please visit it. Boom, got it. Just wrap that up, didn't we?
Thank you, Chad, so much. It sounds super, super exciting. I can't wait to see this.
It is cool. It's cool, yeah.
But going back to sort of living lands and waters even, what would you say your vision for the future is?
For living lands and waters, it really is more of the same, which doesn't sound too like sexy or whatever, but to get more people involved, to plant more trees, to get more students through our classroom, like it's really set up to just perpetuate good things, and we don't need to add a bunch of other things to it. It's very sustainable from a funding standpoint. We're not government funded at all. It's just donations of people who like what we do. So it's really at a good level right now. We have a great team, I think of 13 or 14 people that work here full time. And I just, it's not a business. It doesn't need to grow. It's an organization, and it works well, and we're very well organized. And so I think just more cleanups and more hard work and getting more results. That would be the best answer.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I noticed that you said donations there. So, Chad, for
Yeah.
anyone, say, listening, what can someone do to help, and what action steps can they take to be a part of the solution?
Well, I mean, we'll take all the help we can get. The more we have, the more we can do. But truthfully, if people just focused on organizations doing similar work or the work that they're involved, they like locally, no matter where you are, that's probably the best thing you can do. And if even if you don't have money and you've got a talent, a skill set to add to an organization, I would say do that. And but if you're ever wanting to come check it out, what we do and check out the barges, just send us an email at Living Lands and Waters, and come visit. We'd love to have you. And we meet thousands of people from all over the world, and we never can meet enough cool people. So I would say just act locally, and that's what to do. And there it is.
That's great. And just so the listeners and the viewers get that again, what's the best way to contact you? Is there a website?
Yeah, it's called Living Lands and Waters. Again, that's livinglandsandwaters.org. And check it out. And it's Chad at Living Lands and Waters on there, and hit me up. Be great.
Chad, thank you so much. And for you listening, if you've enjoyed this episode, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because that will show the algorithms that this is an important conversation so more people can learn while we must work together to clean America's rivers.